Does Bo Nickal have killer instinct? I didn't see it at UFC 309 against Paul Craig, albeit he did get the job done, and you have to give credit where it's due. He went out there and he outstruck Paul Craig. However, I don't think he had to do that. To me, it doesn't make any sense why Bo Nickal, who in my opinion had a grappling advantage over Paul Craig. People were talking about Paul Craig's jiu-jitsu, his jiu-jitsu. Well, guess what? Bo Nickal went up against Gordon Ryan, who's the best no-gi grappler in the world, high finish percentage, all things like that. And Bo Nickal gave him a lot to work with. He gave him a handful. He was a problem. He suplexed Gordon Ryan. It wasn't some easy fight for Gordon. And if he could do that to Gordon Ryan, I think he could do even worse to Paul Craig. That's my point. However, he didn't want to do that. He was almost stubborn in using his strengths. He didn't shoot for one takedown the entire fight. Instead, he decided to prove to everyone that he could strike. But my point is, he don't need to do that. Just go out there and get the win the best way possible. Why are you trying to walk a tightrope in the striking when you're not really a striker and you're putting higher risk there when you have better grappling and you could mitigate that risk as best you can? Why do I say he lacks killer instinct? I say that because there was a moment where he hurt Paul Craig. It might have even been right here. Bo Nickal was landing these overhand left hands all day. He was throwing overhand left hands, overhand right hands. He was switching stances. Bo Nickal looked fantastic. He did. He really did. But in the striking, Bo Nickal doesn't have power like that. Bo Nickal is more of a Ben Askren than he is a Dan Henderson, okay? Dan Henderson was a guy that could wrestle, great wrestler, Olympic, everything like that. But if he cracked you with a right hand, you were getting slumped out going to sleep. Bo Nickal, not so much. Bo Nickal could throw a huge overhand like this, and it'll hit him, and it may hurt him a bit because there was a point where he was hurt, and I'm going to get to that in a second. Just be patient, guys. Work with me. And Bo Nickal has to land like 50 of those. Dan Henderson only has to land one. Bo Nickal has to land like 50. So he hurts Paul Craig. He hurts Paul Craig, and Paul Craig gets backed up to the fence, and he's hold here like this, and he's ready to counter Bo Nickal. He's ready to try to put up his last stand and go at Bo Nickal. But Bo Nickal, rather than putting his foot on the gas, rather than pouring it on, he was hesitant. He was frozen. He sat here frozen. And I saw that as someone who lacked killer instinct. Even though Paul Craig was still there, Paul Craig's not some big time striker. Why are you so hesitant? I could see if that was Pereira, who's like a cornered animal or something, or Israel Adesanya, who's a cornered animal. Look at what he did when he was cornered against Alex Pereira in the second UFC fight. He knocked him out. You know what I mean? There's some people who are legitimately dangerous. Listen, all these fighters are legitimately dangerous, especially when their backs against the wall, etc., etc. But pour it on. If you're that damn good, if you're as good as you say you are, Bo Nickal, you have to pour it on. You have to go out there, show, improve, and you have to, separate yourself. I think if you're a minus 1,200 favorite like he was, you have to show why. I think Bo Nickal is a really smart person. And I think his approach to the game is very intellectually sound. And I also think he's a fantastic athlete. However, in terms of a fighter, right? Sometimes athletes make good fighters, and Bo is, right? Like, Bo's a good fighter, don't get me twisted. But Bo doesn't have that killer instinct. I haven't seen it yet. I just haven't seen it. I didn't see it in this fight. He could have stepped on the gas on Paul Craig, but he kind of froze. He literally froze, guys. I think it was the second round. It might have been the second round or maybe the third, but I'd have to watch it again. But I remember seeing it like, what is he doing? What is he? He just froze. What's next for Bo Nickal? I don't know, man. I mean, he went the distance with Paul Craig. He didn't get the finish. It's fine. He did win every round, but what's next for him? He got a lot of boos from the crowd, but that in my opinion, it's not what he wanted, it's not what he expected, but it's still good. And Bo Nickal handled the moment very, very well. He owned it. He stood on business. He said, guys, Paul Craig has over 27 wins, like or 27, whatever he said. And he was like, why are you guys he basically challenged the crowd back. He was like, y'all don't know what you're talking about. I just did something pretty damn good. You know what I mean? He stood on business. And the crowd booed even more. But again, that's good, man. If people want to see you lose, if people want to see you win, that's good. It's when people don't really care if you're on the care to check for you at all if you're on the card, you know? That's when it's a problem. I say you do Kevin Holland. That's the fight you do next. You do Kevin Holland versus Bo Nickal. See what's good. Kevin Holland's going to promote it. He's going to talk his talk, I think. I mean, the last couple times I've seen Kevin Holland, he was kind of very standoffish with the media. I think he has a very contentious and animosity-fueled relationship with the media. He seems very much guarded with them now as opposed to when he first started. But I think that would be another good test for Bo Nickal. It's a guy who actually has knockout power in the striking realm, right? Like Kevin Holland, if he's striking with you, you're at risk. Paul Craig, not so much. Like, you are at risk, don't get me wrong. Again, you're at risk with everybody, but there's levels of risk, right? Alex Pereira has a way higher risk factor standing with him than Paul Craig does. That's just a fact. Everybody's dangerous, but there's levels to it. So I think Kevin Holland would be a fun fight. It's a winnable fight. I don't think Bo Nickal's going to try to strike with Kevin Holland. I think that would be a big mistake. But even still, Kevin Holland's a black belt in his own right. And Kevin Holland brings that dimension to the game. He's long, he's lanky, he's got hands. Kevin Holland is experienced. He's been there, done that. He was fed to the wolves in the UFC. He didn't get strung along and kind of favored and babied by the UFC. You know, they're still burping Bo Nickal over here, changing diapers. Whereas Kevin Holland, they freaking kicked him to the wolves. You know what I mean? They said, go ahead, go fight Jacare in your third fight. You know, whatever fight it was that he fought Jacare. But it's a different experience, and I think it would be very polarizing. That's pretty much all I got here. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. Who do you want to see Bo Nickal fight next? What'd you think of his performance? Does he not lack killer instinct? Everything said in the video. Do you agree with me? Disagree with me? It doesn't matter. Just join the discussion, follow for more, and leave a like if you enjoyed the time spent. Thank you. You are all so appreciated.